Let's dive into those peculiar moments when somehow Sith thrones returned, and chosen ones seemingly grew back parts of their limbs in between films, and you were just too busy enjoying the Star Wars madness to notice or care. Hi, I'm Gareth here from What Culture Star Wars, and here are 10 bizarre Star Wars moments you just accepted. Number 10, C-3PO is barred from speaking Sith. Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Midway through J.J. Abrams' return to the galaxy far, far away, Rey, Finn, and Poe find a Sith dagger that will help lead them to the Sith Wayfinder. But before they can properly move on to the next stage of their quest, the group need to translate the ancient Sith language found on said dagger. Luckily for them, they just so happen to have a protocol droid pal capable of translating millions of different languages. Oh, except Sith, because that is bizarrely not possible due to C-3PO's programming restrictions. During your first watch of Episode 9, the fact the aforementioned Palps had somehow made a comeback, and other baffling developments largely overshadowed just how strange this reveal was in the moment. Think about it. 3PO was created by a young Anakin Skywalker all those years ago, meaning that this youngster apparently went out of his way to restrict his droid from speaking the language of a religion that was thought to be extinct around the time of Episode 1. That programming restriction then somehow remained after 3PO's memory was wiped after the prequels? Also, wouldn't being able to translate Sith be useful for the likes of the Jedi and Rebels during the rise of the Sith and Age of the Empire? In the end, the entire thing ended up being little more than a way to add some emotional weight to the team's mission, with 3PO having to sacrifice his memory in order to successfully translate the forbidden language. Right, let's try and find some positives in this largely ridiculous movie, eh? What was your favourite moment from The Rise of Skywalker? Let me know in the comments section right down below. Number 9, R2-D2 doesn't tell Luke Skywalker about his father, Episode 4, A New Hope. Whereas 3PO's memory was very much wiped after the traumatizing events of the prequels, it was never noted that R2's was. So when he shows up in front of Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi on Tatooine in A New Hope, this little droid surely still had all that vital information stored somewhere, right? R2 was very much present during Anakin Skywalker's fall to the dark side, even traveling with him to Mustafar before his dramatic duel with Kenobi amidst the lava. So the fact the astromech didn't take Luke to one side at any point before his eventual battle with Darth Vader, and explain that the cyborg Sith was actually his papa feels rather odd the more you think about it. Mark Hamill himself also struggled to explain this apparent plot hole a few years back, responding to a fan on Twitter by saying, "I read this tweet, thought long and hard, then just shrugged and walked away, #no plausible answer." So there you have it, even the star playing Luke Skywalker has simply accepted this utterly bizarre plot hole for what it is. Number 8, Luke's ridiculous plan to save Han. Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Luke's complicated plan to free Han Solo sees numerous figures sneak into Jabba's palace separately, with 3PO and R2 arriving first, Lando Calrissian apparently being undercover all along, and Leia eventually showing up disguised as a bounty hunter with Chewbacca. 4 of those 5 heroes end up getting captured by the giant space slug in their attempts to free Solo. Then when Skywalker finally shows up, he too ends up being imprisoned after a failed mind trick, before Jabba tries to feed him to 2 different alien creatures. All that sets up a frantic final stretch that involves Luke taking down Jabba's forces, thanks to R2 having his lightsaber ready, Leia strangling the slug with some chains, and Han finally being saved after just about surviving the Sarlacc chaos. But was it Luke's plan all along to just eventually turn up and Jedi his way through Jabba's goons en route to freeing Solo? If so, then why bother putting his pals in danger via the earlier unnecessary steps in the process? And what if Jabba had accepted the earlier gift of 3PO and R2 from Luke as payment for Han's release? Would Luke simply leave some of his other friends with the Hutt? But you largely just accept this convoluted game plan when taking in the action, as without it, the likes of Leia's iconic bikini and Luke's hilarious force kick would have likely never been born. Number 7, R2-D2 flies now, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Despite never once showing off this super useful set of rockets at any point in episodes 4 to 6, R2 blasted himself through a Geonosian factory in Attack of the Clones, and could regularly be seen soaring across the sky in the Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith. The canon answer for this lack of R2 flight in the original trilogy is that the rockets were apparently damaged at some point after the prequels, and their warranty had then conveniently expired by the time episode 4 came around. But with this never really being explained on screen, most fans either just made up their own excuses for why R2-D2 bizarrely chose to keep from using his undoubtedly cool boosters to help out his rebel allies, or straight up ignored the fact the iconic droid ever possessed this ability during their rewatches of his first 3 big screen appearances. Number 6, Lightspeed Skipping, Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Returning to the often nonsensical 2-hour-plus ride that is The Rise of Skywalker, Poe Dameron and Finn are found retrieving some vital intelligence about the First Order early on. From here, the Resistance lads and their crew are forced to resort to some pretty drastic measures in order to evade some incoming TIE fighters, with Poe repeatedly blasting the Millennium Falcon off into hyperspace, popping up on various planets as he does. It makes for a thrilling start if you're just happy to go along with the madness. However, once you take a moment to assess what you're actually watching here, it soon becomes clear that Poe's light speed skipping goes against everything fans have been told about entering into hyperspace. During A New Hope, Han Solo specifically states that precise calculations are needed in order to successfully make the jump to hyperspace. Otherwise, you could suddenly fly right through a star and be blown to bits. But who needs precise calculations when you can just yank on a lever and hope for the best, eh? Number 5, Anakin's chopped off arm inconsistencies, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Episode 2 ended on a rather painful note for old Anakin Skywalker, with the Chosen One getting his arm sliced off by Count Dooku late on. During the moment shortly after lightsaber met flesh on Geonosis, it was evident that the Jedi had lost his limb from his bicep down. But fast forward to Episode 3, and something miraculous appeared to have happened. Sure, Skywalker still had to have a bionic arm installed in order to continue fighting the apparent good fight for the Republic. However, when the tortured soul wakes up in the middle of the night in Revenge of the Sith, it looks as though his arm only needed to be replaced past the elbow. In reality, George Lucas likely just changed his mind in between films and decided that having Anakin sport a Mechno arm from the elbow down would probably act as a nice connection between him and his eventual son, who similarly dons a mechanical forearm/hand after a fight with his dad. And most fans were just too blinded by how awesome the cybernetic arm looked to give a damn about where it started. Number 4, Obi-Wan Kenobi just let Darth Vader live, Obi-Wan Kenobi. After engaging in another hugely emotional duel with his former apprentice and Jedi brother during Disney Plus's Obi-Wan Kenobi Part 6, the titular master finally comes to terms with the fact Anakin Skywalker is lost. It's all quite moving. Kenobi, with tears in his eyes, apologizes to the person he cut down on Mustafar all those years ago. Then, after Darth Vader reveals that he was the one who really killed Anakin, Kenobi admits to his pal truly being gone forever. In the moment, fans were utterly captivated by this emotionally charged final conversation between the two before the events of A New Hope. However, if Kenobi really felt that the friend he once knew was gone here, which is precisely what he said in the moment, why didn't he finish the job there and then? Killing Vader right there would have saved countless lives and been a monumental blow to the Empire. You simply accept this was never on the cards due to the pair having to meet again in A New Hope a few years down the road, of course. But the more you think about it, seeing Kenobi just wave goodbye to the Sith Lord that has completely consumed Anakin before the menacing Vader goes about causing more chaos in the galaxy is particularly bizarre. Number 3, Ahsoka didn't know of Yaddle, the Mandalorian. Poor Yaddle, not given much to do in the prequels, ultimately murdered by Count Dooku in her attempts to bring him back towards the light, and perhaps worst of all, blatantly ignored by Ahsoka Tano when talking to Din Djarin about another little green legend, Grogu. Admittedly, hearing her note how she'd only known one other being like this, before name-dropping the iconic Master Yoda was too awesome for many to even clock the Yaddle disrespect during The Mandalorian's Chapter 13, The Jedi. There is an argument to be made that perhaps Tano just never came into contact with Yaddle during her days within the Jedi Temple, with the diminutive master stepping down from the council after Episode 1, and Tano only being a youngster during this time when Yaddle took a less active role in the Order. But it's still hard to believe her name was never once mentioned to Tano over the years. Again though, most were just happy to hear Yoda's name being dropped in the Mandoverse, and accepted that perhaps Tano simply forgot about Yaddle in the moment. Number 2, how did the Emperor's throne survive the Death Star explosion? Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. After being completely blown to smithereens by Lando Calrissian and Wedge Antilles during the climax of Return of the Jedi, seeing so much of the Death Star in general somehow still relatively intact on Kef Bir was a bit of a surprise to say the least. Episode 6 made it look as though the majority of the second Imperial space station had been vaporized by the massive main reactor explosion. Yet here Rey was, casually walking around the Emperor's throne room in search of the Sith Wayfinder. There's that much to take in here, with the Episode 9 Death Star sequence also including everything from Darth Rey to another Reylo duel amidst the rubble. That most just opted to roll with this much of the space station inexplicably managing to survive the explosion, atmospheric entry, and just general wear and tear as the years roll by. The Empire made their battle stations strong, folks, just not strong enough to keep from being blown to bits on 2 separate occasions. Number 1, no Ben Solo Force Ghost, Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Much like the grandfather he'd emulated for much of his life, Ben Solo ultimately redeemed himself just before dying and becoming one with the Force towards the end of The Rise of Skywalker. So it would have been safe to assume that, much like Anakin before him, he would have found a way to return as a Force spirit before Episode 9 reached its conclusion. However, when Rey makes her way to Tatooine and eventually takes on the family name of Skywalker, Ben's ghost doesn't join Luke and Leia in giving their new adoptive family member a smile of acceptance. Rey just suddenly deciding to head to the sandy planet she'd never been to, bury her former master's lightsabers in the ground, and then go from Palpatine to Skywalker in the blink of an eye was likely enough to distract the majority of viewers away from the Benless Ghost lineup. But even if you choose to believe the longtime Kylo Ren just hadn't found the time to learn exactly how to return as a spirit from the netherworld of the Force, the former Vader was able to come back after similarly sacrificing himself as he returned to the light side, so why not Ben? That being said, you were likely too busy wondering what in the hell you just watched to even care about Solo's baffling omission. Rise of Skywalker, what a ride, what a ride. And that's our list. Know of any other bizarre Star Wars moments you just accepted? Let us know in the comment section right down below, and don't forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button while you're down there. Also, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, then please head on over to whatculture.com and find some more fantastic articles just like the one this video you're watching right now is based on. I've been Gareth from What Culture Star Wars. May the Force be with you as always. Cheers for watching this video today, and now go and click on some more What Culture Star Wars goodness around me right here, right around this video. Go do it, and have yourself the best of days. Bye bye!